So 10 people dead, that seemed like a good pretext to get something you've been calling for a long time if you're a Washington Democrat. And of course, they wasted no time in using the murders yesterday to begin their latest attempt at disarming you. You didn't commit a crime, but they want you to suffer for what happened yesterday in Boulder. Watch.
It's a sad reminder. COVID is not the only epidemic in our country. We have to confront the devastating, unrelenting epidemic of gun violence that steals thousands of innocent lives across this country. I've already committed to bringing universal background checks legislation to the floor of the Senate.
For years, Democrats have pushed for action to stop this killing with common sense reform that will save lives. Now, we can act, and we will.
This hearing, I hope, will open a conversation about constitutional, common sense ways to reduce gun violence in America.
Inaction has made this horror completely predictable. Inaction by this Congress makes us complicit.
Yeah, people surrounded by armed soldiers are telling you you don't have a right to have a gun because some lunatic in another state committed a senseless crime. Right. Common sense gun reform. They're never more specific. Right now, the only clear legislative path Democrats have to change gun laws in this country would be by eliminating the filibuster and making this officially a one-party state. That would change the country forever. For the next 2 years, Democrats could pass any law they wanted, and as you know, they absolutely would. So far, they've not been able to get rid of the filibuster, but Democrats are already using yesterday's shooting to propose doing just that.
The question is, can Washington actually work? Or do we need to get rid of that filibuster? I actually think this is going to be another indictment of the filibuster. And this is one more example of why, in the least, we need significant filibuster reform.
The problem is in the Senate. Even with a majority, a slim majority, because of the filibuster, it's going to be very, very difficult to get anything done. You know, the filibuster to many of us is a tool, an instrument for government gridlock. We need to do away with the filibuster.
Yeah, so maybe this was why. Remember those two kind of lame Senate candidates running for the kind of lame party in Washington and Georgia in January? This is why it was worth electing them, but of course we didn't. Anyway, Democrats in Congress are not alone in their push for gun control. The women of The View agree. Television talk show host Sunny Hostin, who doubtless has bodyguards, she lives in a 10-bedroom, 10-bath mansion, wants you to know that owning a gun makes her feel like she's being held hostage.
That is not freedom, because I feel like a hostage right now. I feel like a hostage to the selfish people that insist on owning these types of weapons. That is not freedom in this country. You are not a patriot because you think you have the right to own these types of weapons. You are not a patriot. You should be taking care of your fellow Americans.
Okay, mansion lady. If you're so concerned about it, why don't you disarm your bodyguards, the ones at your house, the ones at work, and tell us how you like living in this country, which, thanks to your ideas, is becoming increasingly chaotic and dangerous without any firearm around to protect you. Oh, you don't want to do that. You want to lecture the rest of us as selfish gun owners holding you hostage. It's all pretty amusing. Colion Noir is a Second Amendment advocate. He joins us now to assess what is happening to our Second Amendment rights. Colion Noir, I appreciate your coming on tonight. So this is as predictable as you can imagine. Some lunatic commits a horrifying crime. Therefore, the rest of us aren't allowed to defend ourselves. Does this have any chance of happening, do you think?
Now? Yeah, largely because of the way things look in Congress. And as you pointed out earlier in your talking points, that's why that Georgia election was so incredibly important. And I know I made a series of videos talking about that. A lot of people didn't really heed that warning because they wanted just to vote along party lines, which, again, the lack of independent thought is becoming increasingly more dangerous.
So I got to wonder, like, why, if somebody does something horrible in Boulder, does that mean you need to strip from people the single most popular sporting rifle in America, the one that commits relatively few crimes? I mean, more people are killed by a factor of 5 by knives than by rifles in this country. Why are they so intent on taking this one firearm away?
Because honestly, if you really look at it, a lot of people like to undervalue what the Second Amendment was actually written for, and it was designed to be a check against the government. A lot of people don't like to talk about that aspect. Of course, it was also there to allow us to defend ourselves. But if you think about it, the AR-15 symbolically and literally is the best defense against a tyrannical government. And then not only that, it serves as an excellent precursor for them to then inevitably get to the point where they really want to get to, which is essentially the handguns. See, they can sell the whole idea of the AR-15 needing to be banned because it's evil and it's only meant for killing, as they like to say, which is not true. And so once they get that, and then as you pointed out, it represents such a minor aspect of gun violence in this country, then we have another shooting that happens, which it will, and then they'll go ahead and use that to justify further restricting our rights again. And so they'll take a little bit at a time, wait for another tragedy, and take a little bit more after that. And so that's why I implore people, when they elect these officials, there are consequences for this because they are supposed to be our representatives. And so as long as we continue to elect them without any recourse, whenever they do things like vote for gun control, we're going to continue to see this over and over and over again. And before you know it, we won't have a Second Amendment.
Yeah. That's right. And by the way, Democrats aren't even enforcing existing gun laws in Washington, New York, Chicago. They ignore them. Kim Foxx in Chicago ignores the gun laws, but then they want to disarm people who didn't vote for them. I'm sorry?
Oh, no. I mean, look, the conversation about firearms in this country is so disingenuous, it's unbelievable. This has nothing to do with saving lives. If you look at H.R. 8 and the other bill that's in the House that just passed the House that's now going to go to the Senate, none of those things would have stopped any of the most recent shootings that we've had. None of them. Yeah. So why are we pushing policy that's not going to do anything other than grant more power to the government? That's the overarching goal there. And I think a lot of people really have to start understanding that and take it for what it is.
I think this could be pushing the country too far. I hope they don't try to do that. Colion Noir, it's great to see you.
I agree with you. Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Tucker.